It's the Lekker Rugby Pod, only on Megaphone Rugby.
Welcome to the Lekker Rugby Pod, the one all the Bulls supporters have been waiting for, and hopefully all South African supporters have been waiting for, the one where Harry tells us how the Bulls can beat Leinster. And Harry, welcome back firstly, and secondly, for a change we have the teams. Normally they announce on the Friday morning, and today they've been announced quite early, 2 days before, because it's the final after all. So what did you think? What do those teams look like?
Yeah, at this stage of the season, like anytime you're in deep playoffs, you don't make a lot of adjustments unless it's for injury. So obviously with Cam out for a while on the ham, you have to bring in reinforcements. So that is Nizam Carr on the bench. Otherwise, it's basically a Bulls team that we've come to know in this rotation. For Leinster, Josh van der Fleer is back, but they've kept faith with their backline alignment. There had been some whispers in Dublin that maybe Sam Prendergast's falling confidence and shakiness was affecting the outside backs. So I think, it's interesting because when you're playing against a team that you should lose to, that's better than you, that's, at home, only lost twice, 900 caps, 15 million euros, you're coming in as the underdogs. I think it's better if you have the same settled team because you can study them from so many sources. You can study Leinster from everything. You can study Ireland. You can study Geordie Barrett at the All Blacks. There's so many sources with great depth that you can look at. And so the advantage kind of slips back to the challenger. I think the Bulls, in a way, enjoy some advantages here that they wouldn't against a lesser-known team. But everyone understands this particular format. The Nienaber defense can be studied. So I think they take the field 50-50. In my opinion, this is a 50-50 match. And if anything, I'm sort of more bullish on the Bulls nowadays because I think maybe they have an even clearer identity knowledge than Leinster. So how does that make sense? These guys have been playing together in the Dublin area since they were 14. They have 900 caps, like I said. They together. Why wouldn't they know who they are? And I think it's because they had a crisis this year of identity. I think I don't know if they believe in their knockout strength. And I just think that the Bulls they've rallied around, obviously, some really tragic events this season, which can help you love each other and look at each other as different than just a team. They're happy. Everyone's saying that. Everyone's reporting the H word is coming out all the time. They're settled. They are ready to take a red hot go. But I think the red hot go for the Bulls is a light blue go. It's not crazy. I don't think you have to play Leinster crazy. I think Glasgow tried to play them crazy, and it doesn't really work. I think the Saints is the terrible model to follow because I don't think the Saints can do that again either. I don't think the Saints could pull off the same miracle they did. I don't think Jake White's a Saints miracle, let's run it from the 10 guy anyway. I think the proper model is still the same model, which is Leinster is a pretty team with pretty passes. They average, what do they average? 175 passes a game. It's going to be rainy. It's raining today, tomorrow, and the next day. 175 passes, 237 offloads for the season. That's a lot. It's a lot of ball that's on the ground. That's a lot of knock-ons. And the scrum, 95% success rate for the Bulls. 37% of scrums the Bulls have ended in a penalty for the Bulls. 37%. It's almost like your best attack weapon out on the field. Forget ruck phases, just drop the ball on purpose if you're in the Leinster third. So I do think there's a simplicity to what the Bulls can put on the field against massive favorites at home in Croke Park, where it's a spiritual GAA hurling ground. Ireland almost never loses there. They've only played the Springboks once there, and they beat the Boks. You can almost play too much. And so what I would say is the essence of what I've thought about is a lot about taking what Leinster does and not encouraging them, maybe it's the wrong word, but almost allowing them to think too much about that stuff, almost play too much, to do too much. James Lowe is a guy who can win a game for you, he can lose a game for you. Loftus, 2024. He can literally try to do too much. Gary Ringrose, hair on fire. Ringrose connection with Lowe, suspect. The O'Briens, they're good running in a straight line, but are they really as agile or nimble as a guy like Seb de Klerk or Villy or Kane Moody? I don't think so. I actually think there's holes there. Now, I just want to preface everything. Leinster's a great team. Leinster should win the URC pretty much every second year. It's ridiculous they haven't done it already. Every time they don't win it, it's really a failure. Whereas I think for a team that has a €5 million payroll, whatever it is, €5 million payroll, whatever it is for the Bulls versus 15, 220 test caps against 900, and most of those is Villy. It's really an uphill climb. And so it's humble, it's circumspect. There's no Vingat blowing here of a horn. It's just that the Bulls have a 50-50 shot to me. Because the Euros don't matter tomorrow on the next day on the field. You can take the field. If anything, that makes me want to, if I'm David Creel, I want some of those Euros. Let me come take them. On the tests, I think it's another thing where you say, I want to make my name, up against Josh van der Fleer. I'm Marco. I've got my 20 test caps and he's got his 60, whatever. I want to take those from him. You could even use the Irish Bach rivalry as your fuel, because the Durban leg breaking, elbow twisting, rib cracking dock brawl hasn't been avenged. So there's lots of plays here. I don't know about you, MVA, but I have a feeling that may be irrational and may be based on nothing. But I think when you look at the most important statistical advantages of Leinster, which is passing, offloads, playing wide, which scores tries, and getting into the 22, those are harder in the rain in a final than the statistics of the Bulls, which are great to replicate. I think you can always replicate gain line, which is much better. The Bulls are much better at just getting one-on-one over the gain line. Kubas Visa, Marcel, Marco, just get over the gain line. And the scrum percentage being ridiculously better. And the lineouts. So I think, and the maul. So 16 meters a game for the Bulls by maul drive, a paltry 6 for Leinster. They don't run their maul very much. They don't know how to finish their maul. So I think, when you look at a final, scrums, mauls, gain lines, lineouts, these are things that you cannot run away from. It's a tale as old as time.
When you sent me your thoughts, you prefaced it with Sun Tzu. And that's because Jake also quoted Sun Tzu last week. And he said, basically, attack your enemy where he's least prepared to change or maybe probably supposed to be the weakest. So what I'm seeing here is a game of chess masters. Now, I'm not talking about Leo Cullen here. For me, I'm seeing this, and I think it's to a degree going to be true. It's going to be Jake versus Jacques. One-time World Cup winner versus double World Cup winner. Springbok coaches, both of them, brilliant coaches, successful guys, and they know each other, back to front. I asked Jake this question last week, and he sort of brushed it off, but there must be more to it. And like you just said now, Jake, and I was listening to our podcast last week where you talked about the game before the Bulls. When you spoke to Jake, and you told me he went and he's read up books outside of rugby, how to identify your opponent's weaknesses, how to get pressure points and all that kind of a thing. Jake is taking this very, very seriously. And an interesting thing that happened to me, and I might be a bit biased or maybe too close to the, can't see the wood for the trees kind of a thing. Willem Strauss sent out a WhatsApp earlier this week where he started with Jake's entire pedigree. World Cup winner here, Challenge Cup winner here, blah, 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 blah. And then Bulls 2021 World Cup, Rainbow Cup final lost. 2022 URC final lost. 2024 URC final lost. I mean, that was a bit, I didn't like it, number one. It sort of sent the wrong message for me. I'm asking you this question, and I don't know if I should, but I'm going to ask it. Lots of rumors about Johan van Graan maybe being on the way to Loftus, and Franco saying that he's not really keen on maybe going for the Glasgow Warriors again. Do you think there's any thought maybe or any chance maybe that Jake might want to go out in a blaze of glory and that might be his final hurrah year? And that's why he's taking it so seriously, especially against a guy like Jacques Nienaber, sort of the brains of rugby, almost, if you want to call it that. And I'm a little off the subject here, but I want to talk about the chess game just now, but I want to talk about the chess masters first, if you know where I'm going with this.
It's unavoidable when the old adage of father time is undefeated. So everyone's got a clock ticking in their head, legacy. How will I be remembered? Was I a closer? Jake White was a closer. Give me a good shot, I'll give you a title. Trust me, I'll bring back a cup. No excuses, tough, uncompromising. He had his doctrines, but I think he also adapted them. When he went to the Brumbies, he's I think at the Bulls a much more high octane attack at times. He's messed around with some things. He's open, but I think the question remains for him is, was the Glasgow loss my biggest opportunity and did I spurn it? Or was it just sort of setting up like life does sometimes, the even greater moment to silence the crowd at Croke Park and go off like that? So if that was the way, if that is what happens, it's almost like you're missing an amazing farewell. Like you ride off like the cowboy into the sunset and tell everyone else to F off and kiss your ass.
Yeah.
So, and then you do what you want. Put your feet up and watch the dog, So I'm not going to, reveal anything I've heard, but I've heard plenty of coach hunger gaming going on with, the Wales job still sitting there steaming like a turd on the ground. Ooh, who wants me? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it bad? Well, it's kind of good to me to take a team that isn't doing well, that is definitely one of the top 8 teams in the world traditionally, top 6, maybe 7, and you go in there and you do a turnaround. You've got some of the talent you need. You're going to go to the World Cup. Yeah, to me, that's an obvious one. That if you're not a test coach, you want it. And if maybe you're for a guy who's always thought like Jake, I am actually one of the best coaches in the world. Why am I not at the World Cup again? Because that's the pinnacle. So there's that. There's also guys, like Johan van Graan, that was a 16-year-old doing lineouts, with the shadow of his dad, very big. Then he went off and kind of almost did it at Munster, but didn't quite know how to do it. And then at Bath, he's got, all the weapons, all the money, all the fun, and it's working. So he might think, what is the ultimate job for Van Graan? I mean, it's probably the Bulls, really, to be honest. For Franco, it's the Box. You have all these different players. Interesting, very interesting. I think Jake has a remarkable ability, even if he sometimes spars with the press, traditional media at times, almost in a way that I don't think he has to, probably shouldn't, but he does, whatever. He still locks down on the weak. I think he's able to just shut it down, divorce himself from all other things, and just focus. The difference of this Jake to other Jakes is he also has fun. And like I said, his coaches, his team is happy now. I don't think they were always happy. I think, that's a process. You have to find your way. You have to develop relationships. This season, they seem to have found a way that they like to tour together. They like to break bread together. It's a fun thing. I watched Jake go out on captain's run in Munster. And all he did was who was it? Zach, I think. He was just joking with him. It was like he was challenging him to drop kick a ball through his hands as an imaginary goal. Just being silly. He wasn't shouting at people or talking about, this is for your life, this is for your country. He was just kind of like, let's have fun. And, our natural skills will take over. And now you have a number 1, number 2. It's just a script that Jake would have wanted to draw up. I think it's better for him almost. Obviously, he should win at home against Glasgow. But this is even almost a better story to tell. It comes right because you get to say, I took on the 900 cap pretty much at 12 British and Irish Lions in a 1 club team. Come on. It's the perfect David and Goliath story. I don't think it's David versus Goliath because I don't think the Bulls are David. But Leinster's Goliath. So maybe it's like Goliath's little brother fighting Goliath. And so it's going to be really fun. To your point about taking on strengths and weaknesses, I do think this is something that Jake really reads about and thinks about is identify what your enemy believes in the most, and take that away from him. See how uncomfortable he can be when you slowly, take off the tablecloth and then it's just the bare table underneath. What you got? What's underneath there? The Leinster has been doing two things recently, just like clockwork. They form rucks. They have to set a lot of rucks because they're not good game line. They're not big monster carriers. They set a ruck in the middle of the field. Almost imagine the middle 15 meters of the pitch, just right down that stripe, where the props run. That's where all their rucks and therefore ruck cleaning happens. Well, the takeaway there is there's not really a blind side or an open side. It's in the middle. And they like to keep their rucks keep resetting in the middle, that Jameson Gibson Park can go left or right interchangeably. And you don't know where they're going. They sweep and loop around a lot. So as they do that, when they get that next ruck, they come back to the middle. They don't go to the side. So even the stats that say they play wide, that's what's measuring how wide the movements are, but it still comes back to the middle, back to the middle, back to the middle, because that's how they like to play. And then that really rewards them against all the Northern Hemisphere teams, all the European teams. The European teams are built around ball watching. Where's the ball? Where's the ball? Attack the ball, attack the ball. Where's the ball? All their calls to each other about the ball. South African teams, and to some extent New Zealand teams, are man watchers. Smash the man, where's the man, get the man. So it's much harder to do this middle ruck thing against South African teams. But you've seen from time to time at the national level that the Irish have found little seams in the middle where they run the sort of diamond pot at you. And there's 3 or 4 guys, they all look the same. And then, Ryan just kind of flips it to the side and there's Furlong or Byrne. So, this can happen at club level too. I think, though, the Bulls are weirdly, almost miraculously built to counteract that. So now we go back to what the Bulls did by encouraging, players like the Sharks to run into the kill zone. Like Andre Esterhuizen, one of the best ball carriers in the world. But what if we always want you to run and get that extra 2 or 3 meters? It's impossible not to take. Who's not going to take an extra 3? But then right there, I got you in the kill zone. Marco, Marcel, Corbis, Grobbelaar, Wessels, everyone's able to get over the ball, even some of the backs are. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is it's really difficult to get around the fact of scrum superiority. And Italian refs are not going to be unhappy to ping someone. The first few scrums are super important. The Bulls have been hard done by this season by not getting enough penalties, even though I think that 40%-ish record is amazing. It should have been 50.
Yeah, because they lost a lot of scrums that didn't get penalties. They should have got penalties for. Yeah,
that's it. So getting pay for what you did is really important. I think early doors in this game, in the first 20 minutes, the first 3 or 4 scrums, if the referee is rewarding the advancing scrum and pinging the retreating scrum, even if the retreating scrum stays together, let's still ping them, which is what I want, because I think if you keep taking away scrums from us, then you have to ping the hell out of them because they have to become a decider. You should lose if you have a bad scrum. So I think that's what he thinks. I think that's his philosophy, by the way. I think the Bulls have to show good picture, tell good story, do the proper briefing before. I trust they've done that. And then the minute that happens, he's got to ping it. And then from that point on, the game changes. It's a different game if in the first 10 minutes, Leinster gets pinged twice. Clarkson, not a tremendously experienced scrummager. Andrew Porter has always had a skew bum problem. And Sheehan can try almost too hard. He almost gets separated from his tight head. You've got to protect your tight head when you're the hooker. You have to keep him with you. So the Bulls have been rocking everybody, including, Koch, Bongi, and Ox. I don't know if there's a better test. And they have 2 waves, both sets of props. That is number 1, number 2, and number 3 on the Bulls' superiorities is scrum supremacy. It hurts Leinster because they have a good scrum against other people. Leinster needs the scrum to get into the 22. They get into the 22 more than anyone else, but they get there by having scrum penalties. Then they get to do their favorite thing, which is a line-out launch in the 22. Leinster is terrible at scoring from long range. They have no long-range highlight tries. They're not doing it with kick return. They're not really doing it with turnover tries. They're doing it with set piece, starter plays. It's a very organized team. They get into your 22, and then they just grind you, and they take it. 68% of their tries come from set piece, and it's almost all from inside the 22.
Okay, I have a lot of questions here. One of the things you wrote to me was violence. When a smart team goes violent, and you mentioned that Leinster's been going violent lately, and that's why their fortunes have been ticking up again after a bit of a slide. What does that mean? And how can the Bulls handle their violence, or are the Bulls violent in their own kind of a way, and can Leinster handle the Bulls' violence?
We were raised in a country of violence. To get from point A to point B when we were 10, 5, 15, 85, it's violence. Take us into those dark waters, I think we're okay. What Jacques Nienaber was supposed to do was bring these private school boys from Donnybrook, and bring that sort of violent work rate. And when he did, Leinster was good. And when he was sort of not the most important voice in the coaching team this season, they lost. And I think he's back. And so I think there was the vindication almost for that approach. I think the players enjoyed it. A guy like James Ryan, and they really enjoyed it. They said so. Josh van der Fleer, Wicklow, the Dutch disciple, good boy, great family. They wanted to know how to win, like really win, the big ones against La Rochelle, against Toulouse. And so plug in the Bulls as another thorny foe twice in knockouts, dispatching Leinster. So what's happened since sort of the debacle of the Saints is Leinster has absolutely become more violent, also kicking much longer, which is weird. 3 games in a row now, long kicks. Almost like they're saying, we don't have to contest them so much anymore. We just want to play down there and want our forwards going forward, and we're going to trust our defense better, more. We're going to, instead of like dispensing with the Nienaber, we're going to actually double down on it and see where it takes us. So that's a challenge and an opportunity. It's a challenge for the Bulls because that is probably the best bet for Leinster. But it's an opportunity because now you want to fight with us in the mud, in the dark for a knife. That's us. We're ready. This Friday night, baby. Let's go. So it's, payday. You got your payday. You go down to the pub and the shebeen. You go down to whatever drinking hole you have and whatever, of your best friends and enemies down the street, and you fight. That is something none of the Bulls will worry about. It is only a worry because of cards, because, we're not just fighting on the street. There's a referee. So that's the problem, is the Bulls have really shot themselves in the foot a lot this season with untimely cards. They might be one of the worst records for cards. So I think if something's keeping Jake up at night, it's probably that. Either a stupid card by a back or a overly ferocious card by a forward. Leinster probably, for some reason, doesn't have to struggle with that as much. But that being said, a guy like Joe McCarthy, he can lose his head. I mean, he looks like a big dummy. So I think you can get him into some hot waters with the ref. So I'd say try it, Get my man Kuba's visa and chirp and chatter and talk about things and the lineage and ancestry of Joe McCarthy and just see where it goes. There's all kinds of ways you can wind someone up. The old hands at Leinster, they will not be wound up. You cannot wind up Josh, Conan, James Ryan. They stay. They're calm. James Lowe, yeah. I mean, he looks like a wind up. He just looks like a wind up toy. So I think there's going to be a lot of that. Joe McCarthy said something that I thought was very illustrative in a press conference. He said, everyone hates us now. Like, whoa, okay. It doesn't matter whether that's true empirically. It's what Joe thinks. It's what Joe feels. And what you feel and what you think becomes a reality for your life. And so Joe comes in thinking that everyone hates us. and I mean, obviously the inference is they shouldn't hate us. I mean, we're good people. Why would you hate us? This is wrong. It's unfair. That sense of grievance is what's driving them right now, and they didn't love the way Henry Pollock behaved in their defeat. So there's this unsettled business. To build a story around the Bulls being the bad guys is interesting because almost like Leinster is saying, no, we're the bad guys. And that's, usually South African teams are portrayed as the bad guys. Now Leinster is saying, no, we're the bad guys. That smells like Nienaber to me. I feel like Joe and Jacques have been talking, and Jacques been telling him, you write your story. This is how it is. And Joe's like, fucking yeah, let's do that. And they're having a good conversation around the fire pit. And a good Afrikaner is teaching a good Dubliner how to take on the feeling of the world is against me. That's potent. But I think still comes down to technique at scrum. You cannot dodge it. You cannot become a good scrum in 1 week. I'm not sure you can do it in 1 year. It's a long 5-year process. The line out is something you can tweak quicker because it's more subjective, there's more trickery. At the tail, I'll tell you this, at the tail of the line out, Leinster is vulnerable. And with a team of Nortje, Visa, Jeff, that's 3 people that you can put in the air that are all really good at winning that arm battle. But also up front, I think Coach Becker can really do some stuff here. If he can find a way to wobble the lineouts, and then you not destroy the scrum, but you have clear mastery of the scrum. If you have those 2 set pieces done, and the fact that Leinster's maul is poor, what I told Jake and the coaching crew, the Bulls, in my secret missive is, I'm not going to say you ever encourage a team to do something, but being 16th in the ERC in meters mauled is something. That means they're not used to it. So take your enemy out of their comfort zone, put them where they're most uncomfortable. I'd say in the midfield, you're at your halfway and you want to maul. Let them maul. Don't sack it. Don't try to sack it. You'll get pinged. Cohere it. Hold it up. It's the All Black method of killing mauls. Kind of hold it, and then just kind of soak it, and then the rest is use it. So now you've got a stagnant, not their preferred way. All your loose forwards are on the ready to tear away and hit Sam Prendergast. And then also, if it does try to maul, you almost make them think of doing it too much. And if Leinster runs 7, 8, 9 mauls, great. If the Bulls do that, they're going to stuff it down their throats. And I think that's the maul battle. So scrum, line out, maul, it's sort of like just exactly play your techniques, be calm, be smart, and play it out. That's all technique. On the other hand, I do think there's some people you got to focus on, some targeting. That's Josh van der Fleer is a wonderful jackler. He's really good at slowing ball. Because he's such a nice guy, the refs will say to him, no, Josh, yes, sir, thank you, Josh, all that stuff. Hit Josh. Make Josh a tackler, a first-time tackler. Not the second assist tackler. I'm saying your head in his belly over and over and over. Josh cannot jackal. David Pocock couldn't jackal when the All Blacks decided to make him a tackler. So that's on the general play. You get your set pieces right, you get your rucks right, but in general play, the Bulls have to seek out and destroy certain people. One of those people is obviously Sam. Another person is, the O'Briens. They've got some wings, I think, that are really good at straight line speed, but not necessarily lekkerbacky. They don't have lateral movement, not swivel hipped. So all these things create opportunities. The problem of all this, what I've said is, Leinster does everything so collectively. They're like, rugby communists or something. They just march in line. And even when they do bad things, they do it together. So you don't see it. You're like, oh, well, that's a good counter right. No, it's not. Everyone's illegal, but they're all together. So I think the Bulls have to create one-on-ones. Like, make James Lowe be a solo guy. Get him all into his, I'm the hero. I think man-on-man, Bulls got better athletes. Just better. I just think in the gym, on the field, on the track, measured, speed, jump, all that. I think there's a superiority there. The superiority of Leinster is that they do everything together. They just will not get separated. So make Sam think he has to do everything. He's a young man. He's got shaky confidence. If you're committed to the tackle and he kicks it and you hit him right, it's okay. That's legal. Make sure that happens. Jamison Gibson Park always gets a cushy ride. It's like he's in a Mercedes. I mean, take the wheels off the bucky. Make sure that he feels it, the pressure. Jamie, James, and Sam, Jamison, sort of the James and Sams of the world, need to feel the presence of the Bulls. And I think if you can get some matchup one-on-ones, Sebastian has been all season long really beating his man. Kanan Moody is big and quick. So there's superiority there. And I think there's also some under-heralded, Harold Forster, David Creel karma. The difference between having Jordy Barrett, when Jordy Barrett feels like he has to do too much, it feels a bit like when Sasha has to do too much at the Stormers. It's almost like he can overplay himself because he's frustrated because, why are we down to the Bulls 14-3? Let me do something. Let me throw the ball in, quick line out. Like in Wellington against the Bucks, and Willie LaRue scoops it up and scores. That was Jordy doing that. Jordy will try to do stuff, and that's why you bring him in. So I think it's this solo versus collectivism, that the Bulls can get Leinster to start thinking that one of them has to do something, and one of them is Joe McCarthy, James Lowe, Sam Prendergast. These guys make bad decisions, and even a guy like Jordy Barrett does. Even a guy like Arachia does, because sometimes he tries to do too much. You go back to Andre Pretorius' brilliant discussion about the offloading with your hand up and your hand down. And Arachia sometimes waiting too late, trying to do too much. And then the ball's on the ground. That's a knock-on. That's a scrum in your half. And Vilko Lowe is licking his chops. I think that's the way to win this final. On my final point there on sort of comfort, your question was about putting them in discomfort. I think you do play a territory game, because I don't think Leinster can score from deep. They're the second worst in the ERC at scoring from their own half. And I think that it goes back to my old 2 to 3 man chase. Kick long, but you've got to put a chase on, because you don't want to have James Lowe have those long clearance kicks, because then you're kind of back to where you started. And so my idea there is on the exit, make sure that you pressure their exit, because then you can get some of those scuffed kicks, those shanks, and then you've got to line out on their 30-meter, and then the Bulls are in good shape. That's the essence of the plan, Mvia. I don't think it's a monumental task, but it's a big lift. And Leinster is where they are for a reason. They're very difficult to beat at home.
Okay, now we talked about when they're uncomfortable. What they are comfortable with, and you just mentioned that they do the most passes and the offloads and stuff like that. In the rain, you said it's going to be like, you showed me the picture, like 95% chance of they used to playing in the rain, but will that affect their game? The game plan in that sense that they go wide a bit less, because we're a little bit vulnerable on the edges. We want to bring them in. Might that change or not? Do you think the weather might play a role there? Can the Bulls pressure them into not doing that? Even Arachia, with all his offloads, he's got probably the best offload stats of all of them. Well, how do they counter that?
They do play a lot in the rain. But what attracted me about the weather forecast was that it's 3 days in a row. So like that just has an accumulation effect where there's nothing you can do to you could have as many towels as you want on the side, but the ball just stays slick. I think it even matters in the lineout. It's just a difficult. The team that relies on everything going just right with the ball out of your hands, that's Leinster, is more affected by a rain climate than the Bulls, who only throw the ball around, what do they do per game? 114 times. I mean, that's a 60 pass difference inside a game. That's 30 passes per half. Think about how much opportunity there is for interception, for fumble, for knockout, for knock-on, for misdirection. It goes both ways. I mean, you throw a pass and it bounces. Sometimes it's hard to defend against, but it does seem like one of the reasons why Leinster's underperformed now since 2021, and maybe even arguably since 2012, is a lot of things have to go right for their style to work in a knockout. And it works over the long season because you have inferior teams and you can just keep doing it. And then you just put zebra to the sword. You just handle a team like Stormers is not really playing proper rugby sometimes. If the Bulls can play proper rugby, I mean, doctrinally sound, observing the ancient principles of rugby and do it really hard. So usually I'm, calling for more like bespoke game plan. I think in this one, it's a bit like the Potchefstroom poet that I put on Twitter. Just go look at it. Just talking about making your first time tackles, but really hard. Making sure you show up at each set piece. Each set piece should be the end of your life. It's the battle for everything. You put all that in, then I think Leinster is going to be the one that has to do something because they don't have a way of running over Cobus Visa. They just don't. They're not built for that. So they have to get around. And if they get around and they try to play, funny games, I mean, who's more clever than Willie LaRue at turning those into opportunities? So when you look at the game managers, obviously Jamison Gibson-Park is unbelievable, and he's their best man. But for the Bulls, you have more experience that Huisson, LaRue, and even Papier actually has played for the Boks and done well. And so, I do think that troika, that triangle of game management in a big game, for everything, for all the cookies, for all the biscuits, there is a Bull edge. So I think that's why I'm going back to this idea that the Leinster's probably thinking everything has to be all of us together, en masse, no separation, no deviation, everyone play together. And the Bulls, I think, can go a little bit more off script if they've done their job for an hour. Just pound, ground, rebound. And then in the end, there could be moments of magic. I do worry, I'll say right now, I do worry about injury factors, and it's a long season. It looks like some of these guys are just being held together by plasticine. I don't know how long it can go. So I'm just praying for Huisson
to keep up.
And I just think if Keegan Johannes comes on, I do have a better sense of calm now than I would have had 3 months ago if you say that name. We've seen Keegan come on and do things, strike the ball, misses or makes. He strikes the ball with authority. He can spot the gap, and probably would be a bit of a nightmare to defend against if you're Leinster, because Keegan doesn't really do the right thing sometimes. He does weird stuff. He does things you don't expect, because he's got that 9-10 brain. And in the end, I think this is, again, a 50-50 game. Probably within the first hour, a lot of stories will be told. First 20 minutes, the set piece will be told. You'll know where we're going with the scrum, because there's no way the ball doesn't get knocked on in the first 20 minutes in a rainy day. But it's difficult to know how that final piece goes. Probably like most knockouts, it starts to get really bad and miserable for somebody when you miss kicks. So, the kickers, the fortunes of the kickers are going to be a big deal here, because even if you score, but you keep missing your conversions, you can find yourself in a nightmare. And I think, this is probably young Sam's biggest test so far.
Wow.
If everyone making excuses for him so far, and he's a wonderful player, obviously, but he's had some problems. Anyone making excuses for him, if he goes south again, they're going to have trouble. They're going to have a hard time justifying it. There's clearly something wrong there.
I'm glad you raised it, because that was going to be my next question. We talked about taking them away from their comfort zones and everything, but one place they're clearly uncomfortable is with Sam Prendergast. There's a lot of talk about, you said it right in the beginning, that he might be replaced in the last. What do you think the Bulls can do to really rattle his cage? Because we saw his sort of attempt at a tackle. It was actually quite funny. If you think that guy actually plays for Ireland. Sure. He's a pretty poor. He's very talented. He's very talented and everything. But Harry, really, man, how would you approach that as a weak point?
You just make him do a lot of what he doesn't like to do. So it's, if you've been raising kids,
tackle.
You know all your kids what they don't like to do, the chore, the toss they don't want to do. That's what you give him. It's like, you're a tackler today. But I think it's more than that. I think when he's got the ball, I think you show him lots of different looks. Fake blitzes, double sides. You probably do have a babysitter, So whoever your most likely Peter Steph toy is, you have that escort, and he is your guy, and he understands everything. He knows what chewing gum you're chewing that day. He is your mate. He is your companion of pain. And so, yeah, that's probably, a guy like Marcel might do that. I think he has the right attitude. Just, I'm your shadow. And there's things you can say to someone also once you're picking him off the floor when you just hit him the fourth time. There's things you can tell him. You can quit. It's that you're done, or you can just sit down over there. It'll all be fine. It'll all be over soon. There's things you can do to a 22-year-old that you couldn't do to a 32-year-old. So I think, there's some mentals there. There's, before you jump on me, guys, they're doing it back. Don't worry. There's no way that a guy like Andrew Porter isn't spewing venom at a scrum. But, I think you do attack his psyche, and that's part of his maturation. If Sam wants it and he wants to get there to the heights of the next British Lions and Irish 10 jersey to become the Johnny Sexton. You don't think Johnny Sexton would have been folding when people, sledged him? He wouldn't have cared. He'd give you it right back. So that's the issue. And I think the Bulls do have Sam at a tender age. It's a delicate age right now where you could help him have a crisis.
I want to ask you about Andrea Piardi. When I saw the announcement, I thought, oh my word, because I remembered a lot of controversial decisions, and then a couple of Bulls started saying, no, not too bad. And you also said he likes being in the scrums. Italian refs apparently like being in the scrums, and like your feeling on not taking the guy on. He's talking about his style. Which team do you think it would suit them the most?
Yeah, and everyone knows I try to stay away from too much ref whispering, because I think it's a race to nowhere sometimes, and in the end, it's mostly comes out even. But I do think Italian refs, in general, on the scrum, they don't over nuance. They just go with whoever's winning. It's a bit like French refs, and so if the Bulls are not going to go backwards. So if Bulls are going forwards, Italian refs will probably give them the penalty, whereas some English refs will hyper-analyze it and find a way to go, oh, no, you went around the corner. The reason why you go around the corner most of the time is because someone disintegrated in front of you. So it's not like you on purpose wanted to wheel the scrum. There's no reason why an attacking scrum wants to wheel the scrum. That makes no sense when you don't have the ball. When you put the ball in, yeah, maybe you want to wheel it so you can attack from the 8. But I think that's one thing. Other thing is, he said at Munster when he got it wrong, Andrea, on the number of players, he said, we have too many rules. So expect from that he'll be simplified about his approach to the game. He doesn't want to pull out law number 17A, little I. And he's just going to go with the main things. That's bad for Leinster, because Leinster has to build so many more rucks because they don't have Marcel, Marcu, Courbis, powerhouses like that. They don't have the ability to break the gain line. They break the gain line less. They're not as dominant. So I think if you have to build a lot of rucks, that means you have to do a lot of cleaning. So let's say that you have to build 90 to 100 rucks if you're Leinster to win this game. So 100 rucks requires probably 175 cleans, because you don't get the first clean all the time. Some of those cleans are pretty normal, no big deal. But let's say of those, it's sort of half of them are really tough, rugged, wrestling, akar van der Merwe on the ground, not fun. That's a lot of ref calls. So yeah, the defense is going to get pinged, but it also means that every time you're on attack, you're actually at risk. You feel like you're in jeopardy when you're on attack and you're in the 7th phase. You should feel great. On the stats, it looks good. But inside you, if you're Jemison Gibson Park, you're like, ooh, I better kick. If I go one more time, Marco's got me. Or I'm going to get pinged because James Ryan's going to do a crocodile roll and get carded. So he puts one up, and that put one up is going to give a ball to Willie. And what you want, if you're the Bulls, is a fractured, I wasn't really meaning to kick, I don't want to kick, but I have to kick. That kick to Willie, green light. That's whatever, 15 years of green light. He knows what to do.
Another player that used to know what to do, but we are not used to, he does know what to do, but he's not in this team because of injury. Cameron Hanekom, how much of a setback is that? We saw now Nizam Kars coming onto the bench. Marcel is moving to 8. Mark is moving to the starting lineup. How much of a loss is that, do you think? Cameron was instrumental in getting the Bulls where they ended this season, not playing in the final.
If the
What's that?
Bulls win, I think Cameron deserves such a huge percentage of credit for it. But I don't think it's a huge problem in this game because I don't think Leinster struggles against players like Cameron Donegal. I think Cameron comes into the fore almost against the more power-driven teams because he's such a game changer. He's so quick for a forward and so amazingly strong, hard to bring down. So again against Munster, I think against Leinster, kind of like that just Marco Marcel misery,
Mm.
just hard. Let's just play horrible rugby, and they're not going to go down. Even if Marco's leg is broken, he's still going to run on the broken femur. He's just that kind of guy. So
Hobble on it. Yeah.
yeah, he's got farm strength. I think that's probably the right way to play against Leinster. So in a way, I mean, you would always pick Cam. So Cam's starting no matter what. But if he's gone, if there was for one game, it would be a final against Leinster. I go, okay, there'll be others. He's gonna be good. In the long term, I think it's going to be good for Cam to do a proper reconstruction, rehab, rest. I think he has things to address in that area of his body because it seems to be, I mean, it's 3 or 4 times a game sometimes. The physio is coming on to stretch those things. I actually think he needs more padding. I think he needs to be shaped a little bit more like, a loose forward with some, organic padding around his body. And I have said for a while now that he's interesting at 6, because that is not an area where the Boks have a succession plan laid out, or they to the extent they do, Sia, Kwacha, Marku, none of them are young. So I do think that if Cam can tool himself to be over the ball and play over the ball like Josh van der Fleer, Tom Curry, these kind of guys, I can totally see him in that role. And he's so quick that, to me, he gets to the ball quicker than everyone else. He already does a lot of jackling. But to me, just put him there as a tearaway, Rob Lowe kind of flank, just always ready for the blitz. I like that. So I think in long term could be good. I feel for him, though, because there's nothing worse than going, whole season, you get to the pinnacle, and then you're out. But I absolutely have 100% faith in the spirit, the brotherly geest of guys like Marco and Marcel to look at each other and say, "Geez, let's go hard today. Yeah, let's make some people from Leinster wish they didn't come out of bed today."
I love it when you say that. I get goosebumps as a Bull supporter. Very last question. We talked about the effect that the whole razzmatazz last year in the final, the run-up to the final, had on the Bulls players, the young players. And now this is the two teams that should have won this tournament since it started, and neither of them have done that. There's a lot of pressure on them. I mean, one of them is going to win, but a lot of them pressure on them to win it now. Leinster now playing at home, Croke Park, never lost there before. The Bulls, under a wily old coach like Jake, the pressure of this occasion, which team do you think is going to stand up the best to it?
Yeah, our friend Hugh Griffin did a great point about how these were the teams that should have been there or thereabouts.
That's where I got the idea from.
Yeah. And at the end of the game, someone's going to have amazing pressure lifted, and the other one's going to be multiplied. It is not one of those things where they'll be, the gracious loser, or it was the rugby was the winner. No, one team is going to be absolutely miserable, facing all kinds of questions about choking, underperforming on the big stage, blah, blah, blah. And obviously worse for Leinster because they're at home and they have 900 caps. But both teams face that specter. The pressure still resides more on the home team at Croke Park with 900 caps and the huge advantage on having a World Cup winner as an assistant coach. I mean, come on. It is definitely the pressure game. Jake doesn't have to lie or pretend or bluff. He can honestly say they're coming in less favored, the underdogs, let's enjoy the experience. That is all more true. There's no way Leo Cullum with a straight face can say, we don't face any pressure as long as we just play well and it's going to be great. There's no way. He is staring down the barrel. There is a loaded barrel in his face, a rugby barrel in his face. And Leo has a lot of questions. I mean, if it were me, I'd be so embarrassed if I lost again. If I was Leo, I'd resign. I mean, I just would, you know. I'd go to my accountant and my tax guy and go, "Can I resign?" But I would resign, and I just couldn't take it. I would feel like I was holding them hostage to my likability. Like I'm a good guy, I'm a legend, la la la. But come on, that's the most underperforming professional team in rugby right now. In one stroke, with one win over the Bulls, they set that narrative right, kind of. And I think he gets the point to go, 2025, boom, done, did it, you know, and it washes away the Saints' disappointment, etc. A year from now, probably doesn't. You're right back in the same situation if you're Leo. But for 1 year, you buy yourself 1 year of a one-word answer or two. Beat the Bulls, beat Bulls. For the Bulls, it is less dire. I mean, it's not like it's the end of the world, but it's such a massive story. If Jake does want to ride off into the sunset, it's huge. If these players that are 22, 23, 24 want to take this to the next level and be a dynasty, huge. If you're recruiting players want to go to a winner. I mean, it just has a steamroller effect. Andre Pollard's coming next. There's a lot of momentum, and then it really helps. It helps sell tickets, bums in seats, and our friend Edgar could be happy.
I really wish. I honestly hope Jake doesn't leave. I must be honest. I hope he can build three in a row. He's up there till 2027. Win 2025, win 2026, win 2027. How much more of a high can he go out on that? One last question. I said it was last month. I just remembered something else I wanted to ask. Your dog predicted a Bulls win by 2. And right after the teams were announced, you upped that to 5. Bulls by 5. Why did you say that? Just briefly.
I just had this thing about the way the back line is set up for Leinster. Okay, so it's two things. I wondered about forward fitness, and I thought they might have some people come back, and Josh is back. And now sort of like arguing myself, if Josh just came back, like if he's not really match fit, when he's come back from injury before, Josh hasn't been very good. Some players come back and the first time they're back, they're good. Ibn Etzebeth is that way. Oh, I'm good. I've been out for 2-3 months. I have not played 1 second and I'm fine. And Josh is the guy who works his way back in. So I think that can diminish one of their biggest edges because he's the best open sider on the field. He was a world player of the year. So if he's off, that's good. And then the backline setup, I'm just looking at the O'Briens. I'm looking at Gary Ringrose with his, he has the most turnovers, a lot of missed tackles. I think he struggles a bit with communicating with James Lowe. Who wouldn't struggle communicating with James Lowe? I mean, he feels like a real doist to me. But like if you draw that guy as your roommate on tour, you're like, nah, can we do it? Can we do it again? I wonder.
The hair dryer is going to keep you up anyway.
Robbie Ento sounds like a nice guy. Kalen Doris seems like a lovely fellow, but yeah, I saw James Lowe at Loftus screaming at everyone else when he made a mistake. I'm just going to freeze that image in my mind because I saw it right in front of me. It wasn't on TV. No one was saying it was not on TV. I'm sure they didn't get that image. And I just look, he's like one of those goalkeepers in soccer. When he gets beaten, he's like screaming at his defenders. I don't like that kind of guy. I don't like playing with people like that. So I just think there's a bit of I wonder about some of the people they didn't use. I wonder with Leinster if they've been almost too reflexive. Also, keeping Archie on the bench, to me, it's not very smart. I would have put him I would have started him.
But are they allowed to? Remember there was a big alaboo about him not being allowed to start.
Yeah, and they say that, but then Jordy was able to start. So here's my big thing. I would have put Jordy at 10. I would have said, Sam, this is no knock on you. We'll work on it next year. I would have put Jordy Barrett with Jameson Gibson Park, 2 Kiwis, and just play Kiwi ball.
Yeah, that would have been a curveball. Gee, imagine that. That would have been one. Okay, I can't wait for this one. I can't sleep at night either. I'm very worried. I'm very tense. I mean, there's so much at stake here. Especially for you and I have been getting very close to the Bulls. We feel it very personally, almost kind of thing, especially myself. And I can't wait for this. Thanks for this. I really appreciate it and I enjoyed it. Looking forward to the game.
It's the Lekker Rugby Pod, only on Megaphone Rugby.